Okay, Russ, it looks like it's 4 o'clock if you'd like to get started.
Okay, thank you. Monroe County Historical Association opens in order its annual meeting, which is virtual, February 27th, 2022 at 4 p.m. We invite and welcome you to the start of our next 100 years at Monroe County Historical Association. Along the way with this meeting, if you have any comments, send them to Amy related to the old business or new business. And today's meeting is being recorded on YouTube. At this time, I would like to honor past members who are deceased, no longer with us since February 2021. Arthur E. Arnold II, John Barlieb, Horace Cole, Mildred Dietrich, Eugenia S. Eden, Neil Fritz, Albert Coster, Beverly Leaston, Henry McCool, Sylvia Miller, Vernon Rustin, G. Garris Schaefer III, Nancy Michael Shakaitis, Mary Ann Snyder. All of these folks will be remembered as wonderful members of our organization, but also wonderful members of our community where they did outstanding work. We wish them all the best. At this time, I need a motion to approve the minutes of last February's annual meeting.
So move.
Carrie makes a motion.
I'll second.
Anthony seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I will give you my report as president. I want you all to know that our Monroe County Historical Association Board of Directors are outstanding and committed. The entire Board of Directors has pledged financial support for the Heritage Center capital campaign. This is very exciting. I wish to thank Amy as our director and her staff for their hard work. Great support from our Monroe County Commissioners, Rachel Heath, John Moyer, John Christie. I wish to recognize our outstanding elected officials, Senator Mario Scavello, Representative Maureen Madden, Representative Jack Rader, Representative Rosemary Brown. I would take a moment to thank Rosemary for all her years of support to the community and Monroe County Historical Association. She will be missed. As the Heritage Center moves forward, I wish to thank the Stroudsburg Mayor, Tara Probst, the Stroudsburg Borough Council, and the HARB Board. I would like to let you know what our committees have been doing on a brief overview. Our Finance and Endowment Committee, who is Pat Saylor and Carrie Weatherby, and other members, monitor all the financial accounts. They review the day-to-day financial operations, work with the trust officers and accountants to ensure our finances are sound. The Education Committee, I would like to see this committee have more members and restart the efforts which has been difficult for the committee to do due to the COVID regulations and our area school districts where they do most of their work. Old Timey Fun in the backyard of the Stroud Mansion was canceled for the last 2 years, but they hope to have this held in September. Our Facilities Committee, Bill Leonard, Ken Sandry, have done an attic to basement condition assessment of the mansion. They report that the age of the building is in good shape. For the age of the building, it's in good shape. They created a spreadsheet and will address the highest ranking areas of concern. Our History Committee, led by John Abel, this committee is very active. They have held successful cemetery tours in October. And Marty Wilson, who's a longtime committee member, continues to collect oral histories in the area. If you're interested in providing your oral history, please get in touch with Amy at the office. Marketing and membership. Jerry Geiger has committee will be creating a short, informal video about Monroe County Historical Association and hope to expand social gatherings at the mansion. The Personnel Committee, Doug Arnold and his committee have updated all personnel policies, created a COVID-safe protocol, and held successful staff reviews. Wine Pairing Committee, Bob Moses, reported that the committee hopes to hold this year event in person. This is the largest fundraiser for our organization. We appreciate everyone who supports through membership, donating items for the auction, and attending. And last is our Heritage Center Committee, who is Bill Leonard and Ken Sandry. They work closely with MSKD architects, John Young, who is a Monroe County resident and is a graduate of Stroudsburg High School. But exciting news today is that Bill Kramer, a lifetime member of Monroe County, an attorney here, and his family, is going to be our campaign chairman. And this is great news for us, with support from Mary Ann Heater. And you'll hear a lot coming forward. As of today will be our starting date for this campaign to complete this Heritage Center. To give you a little idea where we stand today, ESSA Bank has given us a challenge grant of $2 million. We have found $1 million to challenge that money into our account. We have from Mario Scavello and Maureen Madden at this point a RASP or RCAP grant, which is 1.5 million to date, and that is used for construction. After we have spent our own money, we get reimbursed. So we need to find monies to get going with that. The Dale and Francis Hughes Foundation has given us $864,412, which was just miraculous. And today the LSA funding, which is local shared account, that's part of your gambling money for the county, is $212,622. And finally, the Weiler Family Foundation has given $50,000 to date. My goal as we look forward is to get that other $1 million from ESSA Bank with a match. And at that point, I think we'd be ready to go to some type of financing and go to bid with our project called the Heritage Center. So that is the short story on the committees. And I want to thank all the committees that worked hard under conditions that are, with this COVID, has been not necessarily fun. So at this point, I would move on to Pat Saylor for our treasurer's report. Pat, the floor is yours. You've got to mute.
You're on mute.
I forgot, sorry. I will start first with the profit and loss budget versus actual report for 2020 and 21. As can be seen so shortly,
I'm getting there.
we're going to have a split screen, one for the account page and one for the budget. There we go. In 2020, we actually had a cash deficit of $13,390.65 compared to the budget. But this was due to the loss of revenue from our wine pairing event, which, as Russ mentioned, is our biggest fundraiser, and the liability of the PPP loan on the books that we received in 2020. However, in 2021, we had a positive profit of $40,417.02 actual to budget. This was due to COVID relief funds from the PPP loan and the loan forgiveness, and COVID relief local and grant monies, as well as the generous donations from our members and supporters, especially for our 100th anniversary. In addition, expenses were lower due to the COVID closure of the mansion, So at the end of the year, we had a carryover balance of $90,969.17. While the carryover budget is not income for 2022, in calculating the budget for the coming year, we included it in the forecast based on actuals from last year and the income expected without the PPP or other COVID relief monies, and with the addition of a live wine pairing event. It is anticipated that we should have a $36,628 deficit without that carryover. But calculating expected income and expenses, we should be able to obtain a carryover balance at the end of 2022 of $54,541.17. You will also note that the expenses for salaries and wages have been increased due to well-deserved and long overdue raises for staff. The 2022 budget, I have been informed, has been improved by the membership online. Going over to the accounts page, looking at the MCHA accounts, you will see that the preservation fund is almost paid down. This was a restricted fund provided for specific purpose and is not to be replenished. The Dunning Library Fund pays for our librarian and is a restricted fund for that purpose only, as designated by the Dunnings. The capital fund is for the Heritage Center, has been funded by grants from several foundations and donations to date, as was presented by President Ross. Funds were borrowed from the Pfeiffer Estate account in 2020 to pay for some of the needed design elements for the Heritage Center, but the fund was paid back in 2021 after monies for the center came in. It is a board restricted fund, but it can be used for either operating or capital as needed by the association, as there were no restrictions from the estate put on it. As you can see, the endowment fund has done well, even though we have not had an appeal for the last 2 years due to the anticipated need for operating funds because of COVID. It is anticipated that the distribution from the endowment fund to our operating account for wages and salaries will be larger than budgeted for this year. The endowment fund is designated for salaries and wages. As the capital campaign proceeds, it is important that our donations to general operating continue to grow as well. As I said before, we anticipate a live wine pairing this year and certainly look forward to seeing everyone in person again. The future Heritage Center will be an asset to the organization, but it will be invaluable to the community. Support for both ongoing general operating and the campaign will be needed this year. We're grateful to you all for your commitment and support of MCHA. MCHA is your key to the history of Monroe County, and we cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Pat. Since the motion had been voted on, I would also ask at this time to make another motion to adopt the budget as presented.
So moved.
There we go,
I'll
Bob.
second it.
And need a second. Who was the second? Doug?
I'll
Thank
second
you.
it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Very good. Thank you so much. At this time, it's my pleasure to move on to our executive director's report. Amy?
Thank you. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, board members, and thank you everybody for attending today's virtual annual meeting for the Monroe County Historical Association. As we all know, the past 2 years and moving right along into 2022 continue to challenge us all, but with the support of our members, the board of directors, staff, and volunteers, we are not only persevering, but thriving as we work to move the organization forward. I'd like to recap some of the accomplishments this organization has achieved in 2021 and share a few exciting projects that we have on the horizon. I am very proud of the progress in securing funding for the Heritage Center. As you heard, the financial reports and updates from both Russ and Pat on what we have raised so far. There are a few more grants that I will be applying for, and I look forward to working alongside Bill Kramer and the entire board of directors as we begin to reach out to our generous community to make this project a reality. Programming was successful in 2021. We continued our monthly third Thursday lecture series to record-breaking audiences. It really is very fun to see our members from across the country tune in to the presentations on the variety of topics that we offer. I'm also happy to report that the Pennsylvania Library Association was also very impressed by the series and that they awarded us a $1,000 grant for the program on the Marshalls Creek Mastodon. Our annual Raise Your Glass and Support the Past wine pairing dinner and auction was held virtually in 2021. It was a lot of hard work to host an event like that online, and we all learned very much. I would like to not have to do that again, so we are looking forward to having an in-person event this year. We continued our outreach in 2021, from providing a tour of the Stroud Mansion to travel bloggers, and to me appearing on the radio on the Gary C. Morning Show at 7 a.m., to hosting our first cemetery tour in October and organizing the Chamber of Commerce's Monday Mixer at the Mansion. We've been very busy in the community. Staff and volunteers have manned booths at the Stroudsburg's Farmers Market, the Pride Festival, the Pocono Township Community Day in Tannersville, and the Pickle Me Poconos Festival in East Stroudsburg. We love to interact with the community and look forward to expanding our outreach with more events in 2022 as things begin to open up again. As for the Stroud Mansion Museum and Library, we oversaw the return of the archaeological artifacts from the 2019 dig in the backyard of the Stroud Mansion. All 27,000 of them are now back home in the Stroud Mansion. Thousands of artifacts and archival materials have been donated to the museum and library over the past 2 years. With our citizens at home, they're taking time to clean out their closets and drawers and donating such wonderful memorabilia on Monroe County's history to us, and we're very, very appreciative. In late 2021, the Monroe County Historical Association was generously gifted the Sterling Strasser Art Collection from the estate of Arthur E. Arnold II by Mimi Michaels. There are 146 pieces in the collection, and we can't wait to be able to display this amazing artwork in our new facility. Now, looking ahead, we have some goals for 2022. Russ touched on one of them, to record oral histories from our citizens. This is such an important project, and it is wonderfully fun. I love sitting and listening to all of the stories that our citizens are sharing, and I'm learning so much. If you would like to participate, please contact the office and we'll get you on the schedule. All of our oral histories are uploaded to our YouTube channel, so they can be watched at any time. We will also be creating a virtual tour of the Stroud Mansion, and we will be offering a walking tour of downtown Stroudsburg. All of those things are in the works and should be done well before summertime. These accomplishments could not be done without my amazing staff. And I would like to thank some people who are very, very special to me. Brett Fowler is our curator. Tanya Shelton is our research librarian and social media coordinator. Julia Burns is our administrative assistant. And Karen Doherty is our bookkeeper. I commend these individuals who have continued to work diligently for the Monroe County Historical Association. I know a lot of people throw around the word team a lot, but this truly applies to your Monroe County Historical Association staff. Each one of the staff members brings talent, professionalism, dedication, and compassion to the office. I am so proud that the staff works so well together and everybody has the same goal: to save the history of Monroe County. It is an absolute pleasure to work alongside these individuals. Each one makes my day brighter and my job a little bit easier. I'd also like to thank our volunteers. We have a wonderful team, and I'd like them to know how much I appreciate them. Volunteers truly help round out the organization by providing expertise, helping hands, and lots of smiles. In fact, we're looking to expand our volunteer base and would love to have you be a part of our family. Volunteer forms are available on our website, or contact the office and we can get the information to you. And it's not just volunteering at the museum and library. Please consider serving on any of the active committees that Russ had mentioned earlier, or volunteer time for our special fundraising events or community outreach programs. Speaking of the community, we really do miss seeing everybody at the Stroud Mansion, and I'm very happy to announce that starting on Tuesday, The Stroud Mansion Museum and Library will be fully reopened to the public. Masks will still be required, and we will be taking reservations for library use and for tours, but we really feel that it's now the time, and it's a step to getting back to normal. So we truly cannot wait to see you back at the Stroud Mansion and at various events throughout the county. Please stop by and say hi. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, very much. Next, we're going to move on to past President John Abel, who's going to present the nominations for the Board of Directors. John?
Thank you, Russ. Good afternoon, everyone. The nominating committee is proud to present the following slate of individuals for positions on the Board of Directors. And the nominees are Michelle Bisbing, Norman Berger, Gerald Geiger, Lois Gilroy, Robert Moses, and Pressy Schroyer. Those are the nominees.
Thank you, John. Is there any additional nominations that anyone knows of? If not, I need a motion to close the nominations.
So moved.
Doug, Carrie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. At this time, then, I would ask a vote on the nominees. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, John. At this time, we'll move on to new business. Amy, anything come in that anyone wanted to discuss?
Nothing has come in, Russ.
Okay, then we'll move on to the point of adjourning. Anyone else have anything for the good of the order? If not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion by Jerry. Need a second?
Second.
And there's Ken for a second. I thank you all for coming. I thank the members for being with us, and it was a very nice event. All looking forward now to our guest speaker. Amy?
Great, thank you. Yes, I'm very happy to welcome our speaker. Michael, if you'd like to turn on your camera and unmute yourself, and Board of Directors, if you would please mute yourself and turn off your cameras. We're going to do a little flip-flopping here. Thank you. Thank you again, Russ, everyone, for our members and friends who are tuning in for today's program. I do want to mention that today's meeting, including the program, is also going to be uploaded onto our YouTube channel and can be viewed at any time. Looks good, Mike. Okay, you are welcome to ask questions during today's program. On your screen, you will find your menu bar and the controls to submit questions via the Q&A function. We ask that you use the Q&A function to post all of your questions for today's speaker. Posting the questions there helps us keep track of them during the presentation. Now, you can ask questions throughout any time of the program, but I'll want to wait till the end of the program to ask them to Mike. I'm very happy to introduce today's speaker to you. Mr. Mike Chaplin was born in Penn Argyl and raised in Stroudsburg. He graduated from Stroudsburg High School, class of 1964, and enlisted in the Pennsylvania State Police in May 1969, where he graduated as the class speaker from the academy. He first served as a uniformed patrol trooper before being assigned as an undercover narcotics trooper. Mike continued in the major crimes organized crime department until becoming a corporal. In 1980, he was promoted to sergeant. Mike served at various stations in Pennsylvania, including the Swiftwater Station, where he served as commanding officer for 10 years. He retired in 1993 with 25 years of service. After retirement, Mike was a captain on a large turbine-powered airplane for the U.S. government contract company and flew missions for over 5 years. He owned an aviation company and holds an airline transport pilot certificate and is a certified flight instructor for airplanes in all disciplines. Mike is currently the first vice president of the Pennsylvania State Police Historical, Educational, and Memorial Center at the Pennsylvania State Police Museum in Hershey. On a personal note, I was happy to learn that Mike not only graduated with, but was good friends with my late mother-in-law, and I think he and I are going to have to share some stories after today's program. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome Mike Chaplin, who will give us his presentation, The Origin and Evolution of the Pennsylvania State Police, 1905 to 1937. It is all yours, Mike. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Amy. And I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to talk about the origin and the evolution of the Pennsylvania State Police. which was the first uniformed state police in the country. We were founded and signed into law on May the 2nd, 1905, but the reasons for the formation for our department actually went back a few years to 1902 during the Industrial Revolution. In those years, coal was the main source of power throughout the United States. And while immigrants came from Europe looking for a new life, and because they couldn't speak good English, they were deemed to be unskilled. And one of the few places they could get jobs was in the coal mines. Well, the coal mines were a very dangerous place to work with cave-ins, methane gas, and also a disease called black lung. The methane gas was determined if they would take a canary into the mine and the canary would fall off the perch, they would evacuate the mine. At any rate, in Northeast Pennsylvania, there was the largest deposit of anthracite coal or hard coal in the world at the time. Now, these miners worked long hours and it was very dangerous, and they were overseen by a group of people called the Coal and Iron Police. A mine owner could go to Harrisburg and for the price of $1, swear a person in to be a coal and iron policeman, and they would supervise all the miners. And they were thugs, they were criminals, adventurers, and that type of thing. And they were just bad people. And they beat the miners on many occasions, killed the miners. And finally, in May of 1902, the miners had enough and they went on strike. The strike occurred mostly in the anthracite area, which is the northeast part of Pennsylvania, and it lasted until October of 1902, when the Pennsylvania National Guard was called in to break the strike. At this point, the President of the United States at the time, Theodore Roosevelt, became involved when he formed a commission after arbitrating the strike. He arbitrated between the mine owners and the miners and got the miners back to work. But his question was, after everything was done, what caused the strike in the first place? And as it turned out, it was the treatment of the miners by the Coal and Iron Police. So President Roosevelt, as I mentioned, formed a commission called the Great Anthracite Coal Strike Commission, and they submitted a report to him in March of 1903. In 1903 also, January of 1903, the new governor took office. His name was Samuel Whitaker Pennypacker, and he was the 24th governor of the United States, of the state of Pennsylvania, excuse me. Now, before I go any further, I would like to digress here a little bit. Myself and another retired trooper still teach cadets as part of the curriculum. And there are 6 of us then that also give tours of the academy and the museum and so forth, and the campus. And a lot of these people, particularly the cadets, are in their 20s. You can come on the job up until age 40, but because of the intensity of the program, most of the cadets are in their 20s. We speak to a lot of school children. So I want to address 2 questions that are commonly asked by these young people. First, I was not one of the original enlistees in 1905. And secondly, I never met Teddy Roosevelt. So at any rate, it might be the gray hair. At any rate, Teddy Roosevelt suggested to the newly elected Governor Pennypacker that in order to preserve the peace throughout Pennsylvania, he form a statewide constabulary. Governor Pennypacker agreed and started to put a plan together, but by April of 1903, the legislature went on recess. In those years, the legislature just worked every other year, so they didn't come back until January 1905. Governor Pennypacker felt at that point that that was a good thing because it gave him time to plan for a statewide constabulary. The reason that President Roosevelt suggested this is that the only two full-time police departments in the state at the time were Philadelphia City PD and Pittsburgh Police Department. The rural areas were overseen by sheriffs and constables, and they were limited in scope by the boundary of the county. So Roosevelt strongly believed that a statewide organization would be better able to serve the people of Pennsylvania and prevent future violence. Well, the legislature came back in 1905 and in March introduced, at the request of Governor Pennypacker, introduced Senate Bill 278. A Senate bill is kind of an idea or a thought, and then it's voted on by the Senate. So the Senate introduced the bill to form a statewide constabulary via Senate Bill 278, and it was unanimously approved. It was then passed on to Governor Pennypacker for a signature on May the 2nd, 1905. Governor Pennypacker signed it, and it was enacted into law. And when it was enacted into law, it became an Act 227. So the Senate Bill 278 introduced our department, and Act 227 formulated it on May the 2nd, 1905. Now, after the Senate approved it and after the governor signed it on May the 2nd, the Governor Pennypacker addressed the legislature to thank them for the support of the creation of a statewide constabulary. And it was a rather lengthy speech, but the last part of it, I will quote. He said, "I then looked about to see what instruments I possessed wherewithal to accomplish this bounden obligation, what instruments on whose loyalty and obedience I could truly rely. And I perceived three such instruments: my private secretary, a very small man, my woman stenographer, and the janitor. So I made the state police." And with that, the Pennsylvania State Police was born. Now, the next thing that Governor Pennypacker had to do was find a person to lead this organization. And the name Captain John C. Groom kept coming up. He was a captain with the Pennsylvania National Guard, 1st City Troop, Philadelphia, 43 years old and a military man. He was not a politician. So, and he was a combat veteran. Upon his request to serve as the superintendent, Captain Groom turned down Governor Pennypacker's request. So Governor Pennypacker kept looking, and the name John C. Groom kept coming up. And Pennypacker looked throughout the whole state, but Captain Groom kept appearing at the top of the list. Pennypacker went back to Captain Groom and asked him a second time. And Captain Groom said, "Okay, I'm not a politician. I will not allow any politics in this organization at all. I do the hiring, I do the firing, and I set the rules and regulations." Governor Pennypacker was elated. So Groom accepted the job on the second request. If he takes the task of organizing the state police, there will be no place in the force for political henchmen, ward politicians, or wire pulling. That's exactly what Governor Pennypacker wanted. And he said, if I cannot run this on this plane, I shall turn the commission back over to the governor to dispose of it as he pleases. Now, at this point, I'd like to digress a little bit. I'm also the son of a Pennsylvania state policeman. My dad was a trooper. When I applied for the state police in the 60s, and this is to prove that there really is no political affiliation at all with this department, and it's still that way today. When I applied in the 60s, there were 5 of us who were sons of troopers in the northeast quarter of Pennsylvania. I was the only one to make it. Now, normally per class, we get 8,000 applicants for 100 to 150 slots in the academy after you go through a litany of a variety of things that takes 10 months after the written test. But I was the only one to pass the test and the other 4 didn't make it. Groom served as superintendent for 15 years, but he was actually called to active duty in 1917 to go to World War I in Europe. And when he came back in 1920, then he resigned his post. Now, after Groom was appointed, his next function, because he was not a policeman, he was a soldier. His next function was to learn about the various police departments. So he went to Europe and studied a variety of English and Scottish, Irish police departments, along with Switzerland, Spain, and several other countries. And he returned in July of 1905 and decided that he was going to form our department in line with the Royal Irish Constabulary. The Royal Irish Constabulary was exactly what he wanted. They had troops, they had good rules of discipline, they had good rules of regulation, and they were very professional. So we are formed exactly as the Royal Irish Constabulary. Now, after Groom got back, he also went to Canada and studied the Northwest Mounted Police for a short time. That's now RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. But took some thoughts, but really we were formed in line with the Royal Irish Constabulary. Now, in the beginning, the Pennsylvania State Police was authorized by legislature for 10 men per county to patrol 45,000 square miles of Pennsylvania on horseback. 10 men per county, 67 counties at 670 troops. But this was whittled down because there was a lot of resistance by the labor unions. They were afraid that we were going to become a statewide coal and iron police. They also thought that our department was just going to be strike breakers for the governor. So the original complement of the Pennsylvania State Police that were assigned to 4 troop headquarters was 228 men that patrolled on horseback. Now, Troop B in the northeast quadrant of the state was formed in Wilkes-Barre, later moved to Wyoming, and actually just last year moved back to Wilkes-Barre again. Troop D in Punxsutawney was in Jefferson County. Troop A in Greensburg was in Westmoreland County. And Troop C in Reading was in Berks County. Now, the reason that Groom picked these locations was it was where the railroads intersected. So if he had to move men and horses and equipment in a hurry for those days, he could load them on trains and get them to various areas of the state fairly quickly. Now, in 1907, he got another idea about forming substations. Substations radiate out from the troop headquarters like spokes on a wheel. So he was deliberating this idea. He thought it would make the state police more efficient, but he wanted to have a pilot program first to see if it would work. Now, there are now over 70 stations in the state, but he wanted to start with just one in 1907 to see if it would work or not. And he formed one in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, at the corner of 8th and Main Street in the American House Hotel. It was a 6-man station commanded by a corporal, and they patrolled all of Monroe County, part of Carbon County, all of Pike County, and part of Wayne County on horseback. Excuse me. Starting in 1907. Now, if you look at the picture, the people standing on the steps, you'll see a small boy about in the second row in the lower right. He's standing next to a lady holding a baby. He's 4 years old in this picture in 1907, and his name is Boyd Weiss. And he ultimately ended up owning the American House in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Now, the barracks itself moved next door to the American House property. There was an old English Tudor house between the American House property and the Colonial Diner at the time. And that's where the barracks moved to, but they still ate their meals at the American House Hotel. They were there for several years. Now, one thing I'd like to do is give credit. There are three of these photos in existence. We have one at the museum. I have one, and another person has one, but I want to acknowledge the people that have made this type of artifact possible. My dad and myself and a man named Al Hertz were very good friends. Al was a policeman up in the Wyoming Valley, and in the 40s he moved to Stroudsburg and was a bus driver for March Trailways. And he then owned a taxi company across from the railroad in East Stroudsburg. When he died, he left his entire collection of photos, artifacts, memorabilia to two people. I was one of them, and the other was his nephew, who was Richard Goldberg, who was the Attorney General for Pennsylvania under Governor Ray Schaefer. So Al Hertz is the one that originally owned this picture. Now, the other one is owned by Paul Ace, who owns Ace Trucking on North 9th Street in Stroudsburg. Al Hertz's wife, by the way, for any of you that know the family, his wife's named Jerry, and across the street from the American House, she had Jerry's dress shop. So the first recruits on the job were primarily honorably discharged veterans because they were faithful to the United States. They were accustomed to strict discipline and rules and regulations, and it's still that way today. As a matter of fact, we always had a joke on the job that you could not walk from the barracks to the patrol car without violating a rule or regulations. Used to working long hours, obviously, courageous when confronted by dangerous such situations, which is the nature of the job. And recruits weren't allowed to be married. Now, in those years, they had 2-year enlistments, and this lasted up until 1964, actually. And a recruit was not permitted to be married when he came on the state police, nor for his first enlistment of 2 years. During the second 2 years, he could request permission to be married and request the commissioner in writing. And if the commissioner approved it, then he could get married. The caveat is that the prospective bride had to undergo a background investigation, And if she passed, everything was fine. If she failed, it wasn't fine. Well, when I graduated from the academy, I went to Troop R, Dunmore, which is a suburb of Scranton. And I became friends with this one local police chief up there, and just stopping and saying hello every now and then because we back each other up. And he said, you know, Mike, and he had come on the job in about the 40s. He was older when I was there. He said, you know, Mike, I was a state trooper once. And I said, you were? Why'd you leave? And he said, well, I got married. I said, oh, okay. Well, I dropped it. And I went back to the Dunmore Barracks. It was the end of my shift and we were at change of shifts. And I said, what's up with this fellow that said he used to be on the job? And they said, oh yeah, he was. He requested to get married. The crime section did a background investigation on the prospective bride and she failed, and she really failed. And he married her anyway. And he was gone the next day. And that's how it was in those days. There was no arbitration or any of that. We were issued 2 uniforms, one winter, one summer, and they were identical to the Royal Irish Constabulary, which is this photo here. They were a dark military tunic and riding breeches. Now we call them a blouse. And when I was on, we also wore a strap from the weapon over the left shoulder, and that's called a Sam Brown strap. They still wear the blouse today or the tunic, but only for formal ceremonies. So dark military tunic and riding breeches, black pigskin puttees, which are the leather devices around the calf, and that's to protect the rider, the inside of the rider's calf area from chafing because of rubbing against the saddle. Reinforced black bobby helmet. I'd like to talk about this just for a second. If you see that badge in the center of the bobby helmet, that's called the Brunswick Star. And it originated, most of the police departments and fire departments in the UK wear these Brunswick Stars. There's an 8-point and a 16-point. Our department developed the 8-point. Actually, they originated originally in Hanover, Germany, but they became famous in the UK. So as part of the Royal Irish Constabulary, that was at the center of the bobby helmet. Now, the next thing is the leather strap, which I'd like to address. If you can see there, he's wearing it between his lower lip and his chin. And we still do that today with the winter hat. The summer hat is, the strap is behind our head, behind the occipital bone. But the winter hat is worn the same way, or is supposed to be worn the same way as this. The reason is that in a confrontation of large numbers of people, if that strap was under his chin, somebody would be able to grab that helmet from behind and pull it and choke him. Whereas if it's between the lower lip and the chin, the helmet will just come off. Now, you'll see pictures of people not wearing it the right way, but this is the way it's supposed to be worn. The black horsehide gauntlets, which are the gloves with the leather forearm protectors, 38 caliber Colt revolver with a 6-inch barrel. This is actually what I was issued when I came on in 1969. And it was within our department for 75 years, from 1905 to 1980. 1980, we went to the Sturm Ruger stainless 357, then to the Beretta 9mm, then to the Glock 9mm, and now the troopers carry the SIG 45, the SIG Sauer 45 caliber P227 semi-automatic. 45 caliber Springfield trapdoor carbine rifle. These were single shot. They were government surplus that we received them. And the standing joke on the job was that the 7th Cavalry under General George Custer carried these at the Little Bighorn. They didn't do him much good, so we got them. The nightstick, and you'll see a picture of one on a horse and the horse. The horses were purchased from the government at $115 a horse and shipped from Fort Worth, Texas. Now, this photo on the lower left side here, this is Corporal William Hanna, and his horse is Allah. Now, Hanna was in Troop A, Greensburg. The horses were all named beginning with the first letter of the troop. In other words, this is Allah and Troop A. If it was Troop B, it would be Buster, Billy. And Troop C would be Charlie, and so on and so forth. These are Mustangs, and these are what I rode when I went through. Up until 1985, every state policeman that has gone through the academy has been required to become an expert horseman. In 1985, that was done away with. But up until then, every trooper that you've seen that's older had to become an expert horseman. Now, Allah was shot in the right side of the neck during a demonstration and riot in Fayette County, which is in the southwest corner of the state. These Mustangs, and that's what we rode as cadets, they stand about 12 hands high. A hand is four fingers, and you measure from the withers, which is the back of the horse's neck, where it meets the back, down to the ground. And that's how you develop the height of a horse. The Mustangs are all about 12 hands. Now, we don't have them anymore. We have draft horses, and the state won't even look at them unless they're a minimum of 16 hands high. There's some big boys. The Mustangs weighed about 1,200 pounds, and the draft horses weigh about 2,500 pounds. And they quickly become your partner, and boy, is that true. You're with them all the time. The horse in those years also functioned as the trooper's muscle when confronted by unruly crowds. Two objectives that you always have on a horse is you never let go of the reins and you never get off the horse, because the horse is your safety. Now, if you had a squad of these Mustangs like here, and they kick that rear end around and start going sideways through a crowd, they have the ability to move the amount of people that it would take 10 troopers to move on foot as a line of skirmishers. So it's not a good, particularly with these draft horses today. I mean, these are some big boys. This incident is the one that solidified the Pennsylvania State Police for many years to come. This was a trolley strike in Philadelphia, which started February 19th of 1910. Now, between 1905 and 1910, and this is probably going to ring a bell to you, there was a huge amount of radical groups, to include Communist Party, that type of thing, that tried to do away with the state police. And they did it by defunding the state police. That was their goal. And there was a large number of groups that did that. Well, when this incident happened, first of all, in 1906, when they started doing this, 1906, we had our first 2 troopers killed. So then it kind of backed off a little bit. Then they started up again. And then in 1909, we had 2 more killed. And then in 1910, this happened. And this was the determining factor here. Now, Pennypacker was no longer governor. So when this occurred in 1910, February the 19th, the mayor of Philadelphia called the governor and requested the National Guard to come quell the riot. It was 6,000 trolley workers that overwhelmed a 3,000 man Philadelphia Police Department, and it was out of control. So the governor at that time, and as I say, not Pennypacker, at that time, the governor said, I'm not going to send you the guard. I'm going to send you the state police. And when they've eaten up the state police, then I'll send you the guard. So he contacted Superintendent Groom, who's on the left here in this picture. Captain Lum, the assistant superintendent, is on the right side of the picture. And they took 178 men on horseback and went to Philadelphia and went to City Hall. They arrived on February 24th, 1910, and they met with the chief of police. And the chief says, now, one of my guys is going to work with one of your guys. And that's all he got out of his mouth, because Groom held up his hand and he said, no, that's not going to happen. My men stick together. My men work for me. And we're not going to be involved in any other form. We know what we're doing together. We train together. And so we're going to work together. Now, where's your problem? And the mayor, or the chief of police, said Kensington. So this is a picture of them riding into Kensington in a column of twos, looking straight ahead at the position of attention on the horse, 178 strong. When they got into Kensington, they divided up into squads and they broke the riot in 3 days. Nobody was killed after they arrived. Nobody was killed, and they all went back to their troops. Now, this made national news at the time. And in addition to that, Teddy Roosevelt came to inspect the troops at Wyoming. And the photo is in your, I think it's your Fanlight magazine regarding this presentation. If you see that photograph, that was Teddy Roosevelt when he came to inspect the troops at Wyoming after this incident happened. Now, Roosevelt was no longer president. He served from 1901 when President McKinley was assassinated to 1909, but he was still a big supporter of the state police because he's the one that in effect suggested that this state police be formed. He was very proud of our department. So once he then inspected our troops, then it really went nationwide, and all the defund the state police went away. Now this picture, I just put this in here because of two things. First, so you can see the length of the riot stick at that, on the left side of the horse there. It's a lot longer than the batons that were issued today. And secondly, the badge. The Pennsylvania State Police does not wear a badge. We are one of the few departments in the country that don't do that. Our patch is our sign of authority. We carry our badge, still do, even as a retiree. But in those years, the troop commanders would allow, in the summertime, because of the weight of the tunic, they would allow them to patrol without the tunic, but they had to wear a badge for identification. Troopers patrolled alone on horseback, riding up to 25 miles a day, and had to handle any situation. Now, there were also a couple of things that played in with this. They didn't have radios on the patrol cars in those days. Those patrol cars ate oats. But they would say, for example, they would leave the American House to go on patrol. And let's say they were going to Delaware Water Gap. Well, a Mustang walks at 3 miles an hour. So Delaware Water Gap being a little more than 3 miles, you would assume it would be an hour to get there, although going up a hill such as Foxtown Hill, it might take a little longer than that. At any rate, when a trooper arrived at his first location, he had to go into a post office, business, store, restaurant, bar, whatever, and have the operator sign his daily report to show that he'd been there. That's how troopers were supervised in those days. So then he would leave Delaware Water Gap and he would go to Minnesink Hills, and he would do the same thing there, and then Shawnee and so on and so forth. So if he left the American house to go on patrol, the only way that they could communicate with him was to know where he was going to be next. So his first stop was the post office, we'll say, in Delaware Water Gap. So he left 30 minutes ago, and the desk officer would contact the post office in Delaware Water Gap and tell him when he gets there, call the barracks because he's got an incident for him. That was how the communications was handled in those days. They rode alone, we still do, except when they're going on warrant service or something like that, something a little dangerous. And that's a picture of two of them. Now, the next thing was training. From 1905 to 1910, we didn't have any training. We had, for example, a new hire would just report to the troop, and he'd ride with a senior guy for a few days, and then he'd be cut loose. Now, the original enlistees, all of them, all enlisted on December 15th, 1905. So anybody that would come after that was assigned to one of those people. Now, from 1910 then to 1920, Captain Groom moved the troop headquarters, Troop C headquarters, from Reading to Pottsville. And that's this, where you see the lower left there, that's Pottsville. Now they sort of developed a training scenario, but here's how it worked. Say, for example, I went in and I was on patrol one day, but I didn't really have anything to do, and a new hire come in, I would teach them search and seizure. Now, let's say the next day, Amy was on patrol and she didn't have anything to do. She would teach laws of arrest. That's pretty much how it went between 1910 and 1920. The first dedicated training school we had was in 1923, and it was in the Big Spring Hotel in Newville, Pennsylvania. We were there 3 years, and it was a disaster, but it was the first time we had a cadre to conduct training for new hires. It was filthy dirty, it was infested with rodents and so on and so forth. So the state was looking to move out of there. And a fellow by the name of Milton Hershey got word of that. And he contacted him and he said, you know, I have this old farmhouse in Hershey. I won't charge you anything. You can move in there and conduct your training. And that's exactly what happened. The state police cadre then moved in 1924 to the old farmhouse, which is on Cocoa Avenue in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And that's where the training school was for many, many years. So Milton Hershey died in 1945, but Hershey Trust took over his estate and his holdings, still has them actually. And when we decided, our department decided that we wanted to build a new state-of-the-art academy, Hershey Trust got a hold of them and said, you know, you guys have been a fixture around here for so long. We hate to see you leave. We'd like to make you an offer you can't refuse. And here it is. We have 28 acres of land on a hill outside of Hershey. It overlooks Hershey. You can smell the chocolate, and we'll sell that 28 acres of land to you for $1. And that's what happened. They sold the state 28 acres of land for $1, and the new academy was built, and it was copied off the United States Military Academy at West Point. So in this 1924 to 1928 scenario, it was a training school, and the new hires rank was called student recruit. But now, since we were patterned after the United States Military Academy at West Point from 1960 on, the new hires rank is cadet. Now, this is something that every state policeman has to do. General Order number 14 in 1929 under Superintendent Lynn Adams required this call of honor to be memorized by each trooper. And when you think about it, every trooper that you've ever met has had to memorize and live this call of honor. And it says, I am a Pennsylvania state policeman, a soldier of the law. To me is entrusted the honor of the force. I must serve honestly, faithfully, and if need be, lay down my life as others have done before me, rather than swerve from the path of duty. It is my duty to obey the law and to enforce it without any consideration of class, color, creed, or condition. It is also my duty to be of service to anyone who may be in danger or distress, and at all times so conduct myself that the honor of the force may be upheld. That particular oath has no expiration date. Once you take it, the only way it's taken from you is when you die. The call of honor was a basis for our conduct, and all cadets must recite the call of honor to a commissioned officer before they can graduate from basic training. Now, I'm going to briefly cover this, but we actually have a 50-minute program that we do. This is also part of what we teach the cadets, but their program is quite a bit longer because we get into some tactical things that we don't talk about as far as the regular program is concerned. But these are the first two troopers that were killed in the line of duty. Private John Henry was the first, Private Zeringer was the second, and it occurred during a violent confrontation with members of the Black Hand Society in Florence, Jefferson County, about 6 miles from Punxsutawney, near two soft coal mines. This is a troop photo before they were killed. That's Henry over there, and that's Zeringer over there. This is Florence. This is a powerhouse, and across the street from this powerhouse is where this violent confrontation occurred. There were 2 troopers killed, 2 troopers wounded. A 14-year-old boy who got caught in the crossfire was wounded, and all of the members of the Black Hand were killed. There was 1,400 shots exchanged, 900 by our department, 500 by the Black Hand. This man's name is Homer Chambers. He was wounded 8 times in this gunfight. That's a better picture of the Brunswick Star on the Bobby helmet there. The D11, by the way, that's not his badge number. It's his ID number for the troop. It's Troop D, and his pay number was 11. That's Captain Joseph Robinson. If you look in the Fanlight magazine, you'll see him standing right to the right of Teddy Roosevelt. It would be the left as you're looking at it, but he's standing to Teddy Roosevelt's right. He's the one that ended the incident at Florence. These are 5 of the survivors that have been promoted. And as I say, if you ever want a presentation on that, it takes about 50 to 55 minutes. This is the only attack dog we ever had. His name is Omar, and he's a Belgian Malinois. And his handler was a fellow named Sergeant Tim McCarthy, who was actually born in Europe, in England. This is a picture of Omar in front of the training school on Cocoa Avenue in Hershey. If you see the guide on the upper right, let's call it a flag. ST on the top means school troop. SPF means state police force. And there you get a better look at the Sam Brown belt from the weapon to the over the left shoulder that I was telling you about. That's Sergeant McCarthy and Omar. Omar was quite athletic. He could jump over an 8-foot wall. And what happened, they were sent to, out of Chambersburg, Fulton County, they were sent to serve a 302 commitment on this man. His name was Marshall Lodge. He was a violent 280-pound, 6'3" individual. A 302 commitment, and they still serve them today. It's if a person is suspected of being a danger to himself or somebody else, they are involuntarily committed to a mental institution for a period of 72 hours for an evaluation to determine if they are or not. That was the type of paper that was being served on Marshall Lodge. As it turned out, he killed Sergeant McCarthy. Omar was chasing him all through the house. He shot Omar twice, once in the stomach and once in the leg, and he shot and wounded another trooper named Russell Nyes. Ultimately, the detail shot this individual in the right shoulder to the extent that he had to have his right arm amputated. He was ultimately taken into custody and sentenced to Farview State Hospital for the remainder of his life in Waymart. That's Lynn Adams at McCarthy's funeral. And that's the funeral. And again, either the Henry Zeringer incident, which is 50 to 55 minutes, or this incident, if you would ever like a program on that, we can do them separate and I can go into a lot of detail. Yeah. That's McCarthy's gravestone. Excuse me. This is the veterinarian that saved Omar's life. Omar then became part of our state police rodeo, which occurred from 1921 to 1974. And Omar became part of the act. He also received the Medal of Valor, the only four-legged animal on the state police ever to receive the Medal of Valor. He looks a little bored in that picture as he's getting ready to receive his medal. But there he is getting it pinned on him at a troop drill. And they wrote a book about him, Omar, the state police dog. And that's his new handler after McCarthy died. This was a corporal that took over. That's Russell Nyes. He was the trooper that was wounded that day. He ultimately rose to the rank of major and retired in 1963. And Omar, as I mentioned, became part of the rodeo, and he was kicked by a horse in the head, but everybody thought he was okay. So he went to the rodeo in Butler that year and collapsed, developed a brain hemorrhage, and had to be put down. And that's Omar. Now we have dogs today, no attack dogs. We have drug sniffing dogs, bomb sniffing dogs, and cadaver dogs. And just a quick story, a couple of years ago, there was an incident, a drowning victim. So our dog handler went out in a boat and when the was in 35 feet of water and in a pond. And when the boat got over top the victim who was on the bottom, 35 feet of water, the dog alerted, sent the divers in and retrieved the body. They have a pretty fantastic sense of smell. Okay. The first vehicles were Harley Davidsons, purchased in 1920. And that's them right there. We had 70 of them, and they doubled the patrol zone. The patrol zone normally ran for 25 miles a day on a horseback. This could double the patrol zones up to 50 miles a day. So it was an improvement. This car here is the first marked car we ever had. And I usually tell the cadets, if you can name this car, I'll give you the weekend off. So far, nobody's done it. And we've been doing this for many, many years. It's a Hudson Terraplane, the only time that the state police ever had Hudsons. In 1938, we went to Plymouth, and ever since then, it's been Plymouth, Dodge, Ford, Chevrolet, and sometimes Chrysler. But to date, no cadet has been able to identify that car. And that was called a ghost car because it's colored white. 1927, state police phased out the use of motorcycles. And a couple things important happened in 1923. First, the Department of State Police, the name Department of State Police, was changed to Pennsylvania State Police, which is what it is today. But there's some interruptions in between, as you'll see. The second thing that was done was the State Highway Patrol was formed. Now, they were formed because of the increased motor vehicle use on the highways, and their job was to enforce vehicle laws, inspect inspection stations, weigh trucks, give drivers tests, that type of thing. So they were not considered a threat, and as such, they worked under PennDOT, Pennsylvania Department of Highways. So if PennDOT had the money, they could hire as many state patrolmen as they wanted because they were not legislatively authorized. Pennsylvania State Police was and is today legislatively authorized. We can't get additions to our complement unless the legislature and the governor approve it. And they rode Indian motorcycles, and they had 500 of them. And they were called red wheelers because the motorcycles were red. Now, the Highway Patrol did wear a badge. So if you see old pictures of, now this is a blouse here or a tunic. If you see old pictures with somebody wearing a badge on a tunic or a blouse, that's a highway patrolman. Now, in 1937, the Highway Patrol was merged with the state police to create the Pennsylvania Motor Police. That lasted until 1943. Now, up until 1937, the leader of the state police was called the superintendent. As of 1937, with the merger, when the motor police was formed, that changed to commissioner. So the first commissioner was a man named Percy Foote, who was a retired US Navy admiral, and he was the first outsider ever to take the helm of the state police. And the reason that they picked him was they didn't want to pick a person from the Highway Patrol or a person from the state police because of animosity that may exist. Percy Foote only lasted until 1939, and then Lynn Adams, who was superintendent from 1920 to 1937, came back and stayed until 1943, when the name reverted back to Pennsylvania State Police. So Lynn Adams is the only person in history ever to be a superintendent and a commissioner of the Pennsylvania State Police. Now, this is the last slide, but this is an important one. When I came on, we wore a keystone with Pennsylvania State Police in the center of the patch. So what was happening in the late 60s and 70s, there were departments that were trying to look like ours, and they were getting jammed up. Now, our guys would too. Our guys would get jammed up, but this was by the thousands throughout the state. We were getting complaints. The criminal investigation section, which is now BPR, would investigate the complaints, and they say, hey, it's not our guy, it's this guy. So in 1985, because of all these complaints, and there were thousands, Commissioner Jay Cochran decided to form a committee to develop our own patch based on our history and mission. And I furnished a guy from Swiftwater, a trooper, to go to Harrisburg. He was part of the development of this. And this is the patch that they came up with, which is still worn on the uniform today. And it's based, as I said, on our history and our mission. The Pennsylvania State Police on the top speaks for itself. The black background shows that we were founded as a direct result of the Great Anthracite Coal Strike in 1902. The trooper on the bottom indicates that we're all troopers first, no matter what our rank, no matter what our specialty. It's much akin to in the Marine Corps or the Army, when things turn bad, we're all infantry first, or we're all riflemen first. That's what this trooper means. The gold emblazoned keystone shows that we protect and serve and enforce the laws within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. The Commonwealth crest in the center, the two horses facing each other with the eagle on top, indicates unity. It means that we're unified in our efforts to protect and serve the people of Pennsylvania. The silver starburst you see is the outside of the Brunswick star worn on the bobby helmet by the first 228 troopers of Pennsylvania. And the red in the center is to honor the blood that's been shed by the 99 troopers that have been killed in the line of duty. So anybody that has earned the right to wear that patch has proven beyond any doubt that they have the will, the courage, the intelligence, and the stamina to protect and serve the people of the state of Pennsylvania. And that concludes the presentation, but before I turn it back to Amy, I would like very much to thank my longtime dear friend Bonnie Rudeski for her efforts in making this program come to fruition. And also I want to thank Amy and Tanya and Julia for their excellent expertise with the operation of Zoom. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Mike. That was a wonderful presentation. I learned a lot, that's for sure.
Thank you.
That's great. So we have a couple of questions coming at you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. How did the establishment of the Pennsylvania State Police influence formation of other state police forces across the country?
Well, we were the first uniformed, and we say that to be legal because the Texas Rangers were actually the first in 1823. The Massachusetts had a Massachusetts Detective Bureau with a constable and 33 men, and all they did was work for attorneys. And Connecticut, Massachusetts was in 1865, Connecticut was in 1903, and they had a state police of not less than 5 nor more than 10 men. And all they did was enforce liquor laws. So we were the first uniformed state police. Now, most of the state police organizations and highway patrol organizations in the country, starting with New York State, under the guidance of Teddy Roosevelt, believe it or not, was formed in 1917. And then New Jersey in 1921, and it goes on and on from there. So we copied the Royal Irish Constabulary, and most everybody else is copying us.
So it's really fascinating that Stroudsburg was chosen as the first substation.
Yes, it was. That's quite a unique thing, and it's quite a piece of history for Monroe County, actually.
It sure is. I don't know if you know this answer, but how did the local police feel about state officers coming? I mean, who has jurisdiction over what? How does that work?
The state police has jurisdiction everywhere in the state of Pennsylvania. But if there's a local department, we try not to go in unless we're requested by them. And it's a matter of maintaining rapport and just being decent. So they handle their area. If they want our help, helicopters, R&I, cadaver dogs, things like that, drug dogs, bomb sniffing dogs, then we're happy to help.
Sure. Well, you're all working toward the same goal.
That's right.
Right. Here's a question. How was implementing new technology, such as two-way radios, changes in police cars, changes in service weapons managed by the state police over the years?
Thank you for that question, and that's a good one. As you know, in the beginning, as I mentioned, the horses ate oats, so there was no communication other than stopping. Now, then you evolve to when I came on, and I'll give you an example of how things have evolved. When we would stop a car, and of course, every trooper is trained in this, you walk up to the car in the blind spot. So you're not in the rear view mirror and you're not in the side view mirror. And you look over the left shoulder of the individual. Well, while you're walking up, in our era, you touched the left rear side of the trunk or back of the vehicle. All of us are fingerprinted and palm printed as cadets. If something were to happen to us and that car got away, but was later captured, the first thing that our R&I people would do is see if my palm print was on the left corner. If it was, then of course that's not too good for the guy driving the car. That has evolved even further. Now there are body cams, vehicle cams, computers in the car. It's just, when they stop you now, first thing they do before they'll walk up to you, they'll run your tag. They'll get a history of you. For example, I have 2 concealed carry permits. One is the retired police officer permit, which you can carry in all 50 states and all the US territories. And the other one is the county. As soon as I would get stopped, they would know that. So it's really grown a lot.
It's changed so much, that's for sure.
It sure has.
So you had the one picture of the troopers on, there were 2 of them on 2 horses. Did they face much danger patrolling alone with no means of communicating? Or did they go out in pairs ever, or?
No, they always went alone. And you were just expected to handle any situation. As a matter of fact, I can tell you a quick story that might explain that. And we show this during our tours if anybody decides to come to a tour for the museum and the academy. We have a thing in there called 181 Riot. It's a huge carving of a trooper in a bobby helmet, but it's a true story. And it happened in Mount Carmel. And what happened was they were having a riot, and it was anthracite coal, hard coal people, and they were some pretty tough people. And the mayor of Mount Carmel called Wyoming and asked for a detail of state police to come quell this riot. So Wyoming sent one guy, and he rides into Mount Carmel and reported to the mayor. And the mayor said, I'm glad you're here, but where's everybody else? And the trooper said, what do you mean? And he said, well, to quell this riot. And the trooper said, well, you only have one riot, don't you? And he said, yeah. And he said, well, I got the assignment. And that's really how it was, even when as late as when I was on, although we had radios.
You're right. Well, you were talking about, the horses, and I texted Tanya during your presentation, and I said, we have to look on the early maps to see if there's a livery station nearby 8th and Main, where the horses had to be kept somewhere.
Yeah, I think there was one at the American House.
There would
Right.
have to be. I mean,
Right to the right rear of where the old American House was.
I think it would be on your
If you're
on the
facing it,
property.
it would be on the left. It would be on the left side of the alley.
Right. Something interesting to think about. So you said you rode horses. Did you ever have experience with riding horses before you became a trooper?
Yeah, a little bit, but it really got in depth because we're required to ride English. The course is called equitation. You're required to do several different things with the horse. You take care of the horse, you clean their hooves, you clean their stalls, you feed them. You're with them all the time. Now, my horse's name, well, Academy, begins with A. My horse's name was Ambler. But now, after they got rid of the Mustangs in 1985 and got these draft horses in, they're all named after troopers that were killed in the line of duty.
Oh, that's very nice. That's very nice. Good. Well, I don't think we have any more questions coming in. A lot of people are, saying thank you. We certainly appreciate you, you taking
Thank
the
you for the
time
opportunity.
and sharing your experiences in this history with us. It really is wonderful.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Great. Thank you. And thank you all again for attending. Have a great evening.